How long did it take to make?
It took about, it's been 2.5 years right now, but it took about two years to produce from, first interview to, film festival. We had our world premiere at South by Southwest documentary competition this year, and since then it's been to about 15 or so, plus film festivals, and, it's been doing real well, so we're real proud and happy from the response we've been getting.
How did you find all these wonderful people?
These wonderful people, the people that we made the film with, actually went to Pratt Institute together, and these are friends and fellow filmmakers, etc. And the people who are in the film, such as the wonderful George brothers and Melissa and Ellie. Hey. I don't know, we just kind of ran into them one day. What do you guys? Do you remember when we contacted you?
I just got an email from Josh saying, hey, I'm making a documentary. Can we come film you and your brother, interview you, shoot some footage? And I just said, sure. Why don't you come to this show? And they took the bus over to Boston and saw us play, interviewed us in our parents' shed. And then all the footage they show is mostly shot in New York, actually, because they live in Brooklyn. We're shooting us every time we came through New York over the course of like 2 years.
The same was true. I got an email from Josh and said, hey, we're doing a documentary, can we come? And hey, I don't know who you are, sure, whatever. It was at one of our podcasts in New York, our first big podcast in New York, actually. And we did our first interview there, and then I saw you guys every couple months for 2 years.
Well, what's really cool is at that podcast, we were at Barnes & Noble, and we were again with Melissa tonight at Barnes & Noble as she released her book, Harry, A History. It's already on the New York Times bestseller, which is really awesome.
Wow. Are any of the bands still playing?
Yeah, like almost all of them. And Paul says in the film, or maybe it was Joe, it's like there's 50 to 100. Well, there's like 1,000. I don't know how many. There's a ton of them.
There's about 500 bands now. That interview was like 2.5 years ago, so there's probably about 500 different Wizard rock bands now. Not all of them are playing shows, and Joe and I, we were living on tour for like the last 3 years, but now we're not playing as much as we used to.
And the band names have gotten pretty obscure now, right? You were saying
MC Creature.
MC Creature.
Miles the editor. He'd never read Harry Potter. He didn't know anything about Harry Potter when we started the project. He's like, I don't know about Harry's a character. That's all I know. And then 2.5 years later, he not only doesn't know everything, but he's a wizard. He's got his own Wizard rock band, so that's really cool.
Or Wizard rap.
Wizard rap.
Wiz Hop.
Wiz Hop.
Question right there?
Yeah. The animation that was done of Brad Neely's stuff, was that drawings that he gave you, or did he do that animation?
No, he gave us those drawings.
And you did it?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That is great.
Yeah, Gerald and I did it.
That was mostly good.
We were nervous to show him because we love him so much that we were scared to do stuff, but he was very nice about it. So.
Yeah.
How did you find that anti-wizard woman?
Carol Matriciana lives in LA. She was one of the few anti-Harry Potter people who would respond to me, first of all. But actually, what ended up happening is, I don't know if anybody's seen Jesus Camp, but there's a scene where this woman is kind of like flailing her arms around, saying that everyone's going to hell who reads Harry Potter. And what we really wanted to do is we wanted to bring that debate onto the platform because it's part of everyone who participates in this culture's life. But we wanted to have it coming from, a very educated, formal point of view, and we didn't want to just write her off as loony. And she, for all of her beliefs, which I don't agree with many of them, she's studied and she's read all the books, and that's important to me especially, and she can bring an intelligent debate to the floor, and I think that that's definitely what we wanted to do, and she supplies that for sure.
People have mentioned they were like, you know, everybody just laughs at her during the screenings, but
Well, actually,
the
that's,
other screenings, like, it's very serious, and people take it very seriously.
well, we had
So
one
you
in
really
we had
just
one in
depends on the
Sarasota.
audience.
We had one. I think
Yeah.
what Gay is referencing is
Yeah.
the film festival in Sarasota, which is an older, much more conservative audience, and nobody laughed at all. And it's very different than like a liberal New York audience.
Yeah, that
but it still held up, and it didn't need to be laughed at, and I think that was important for us to actually feel that and see that in reality. So that helped. Yeah.
Were there any other subjects you contacted that you wanted to be part of the project that didn't get back to you or didn't work out or didn't want to be part of the film?
Yeah. We basically were, we kind of tiptoed into each subject because we were very concerned that it would become overcrowded, and some might argue that it is pretty crowded already. The Harry Potter fan base is a huge phenomenon, so you can't obviously make a retrospective. You have to really kind of cherry pick people and stories, and that's what we did. But one of the elements that we did want to include was somebody had called it the darker side of Harry Potter. It was that slash fiction, which is erotic fan fiction written by fans, and we thought that was an important element to address because the reason that Warner Brothers, this is what they say, Warner Brothers states that the reason they started sending out blanket cease and desist letters is because they were concerned about the slash fiction element. I don't necessarily believe that, but that's what they say, and that's great. So we thought it was an important part of the story to project. What ended up happening is that the person who we ended up filming, maybe they weren't the most charismatic, but what it really came down to is we felt like it didn't need to be told, and it was a crowded arena already, and we already have F-bombs, and we didn't really want that many other things happening that are maybe restricting younger viewers. So that's what it came down to.
Where did you find the old film clips that you spliced in? I was very interested in those.
That came from
archive.org.
Brillinger Archive, archive.org. Miles did the editing, so maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah, I mean that started as a necessity, not a necessity, but a conversation we had early on, because aside from both sort of Melissa and all the Wizard Rock fans can kind of see what they're doing, but with Heather's story and Brad Neely's story, it's all sort of these narratives that have already happened and they're retelling it. So it was a challenge to figure out how to visualize that. So we just sort of started talking about different elements. There's other elements as well, like contemporary footage we shot of the woods and other abstract, if you will. But this stuff sort of started working out. We just kept playing with it, and I don't know, the challenge coming from an editing standpoint was just to not make it completely illustrative or just filler, which is generally what archive is used for. I mean, I know it is a bit filler, but I felt like it sort of wove itself in. I mean, with weird details, there's that one story with the kid who's named Harry, which is a funny coincidence.
Right.
And then conceptually, it was also sort of inspiring because we thought, this whole idea about copyright and who's allowed to use what sort of footage, or the idea of remixing previous works.
Because that stuff is all free.
Yeah, actually, yeah. If you go to archive.org, it's all downloadable, copyright free.
All the copyright is expired.
It's thousands of hours you can search by any term you want. It's really amazing if you're a filmmaker who's interested in exploring it.
Heather actually made a lot of found footage pieces that were really funny. They were really great. There's like some really cool, like old 50s stuff.
No, it's fascinating stuff. Yeah.